a kind of layer was taken off me, and suddenly there was a change of scenery. All of a sudden I was 2 meters up and saw myself lying there, myself with tubes leading to my head. And it was incredibly exciting, because at that moment I didn't realize what was going on.
Miss Fischer, you recently spoke about your experiences as a child at a conference on near-death experiences. So could you tell us again what you had experienced and what happened back then?
Also das war im Jahr 2003.
That was in 2003. I was 6 years old. I woke up early and had a really bad headache. I then immediately ran to my mother in the kitchen and said, "Mom, I have such a headache. Something's wrong." We were really worried about what was going on. 5 minutes later, I collapsed in bed, and it turned out that I had a cerebral hemorrhage. Of course, I was immediately taken to the hospital by ambulance. There, the doctors discovered that I had a brain hemorrhage, and I spent 14 days in intensive care.
Und auf der Intensivstation hatte ich dann diese Nahtoderfahrung.
It was during that time I had the near-death experience. I more or less slipped out of my body, I would say. I was just lying there and suddenly I felt as if a layer was lifted off me.
Ja, also zuerst
yes, a kind of layer was taken off me. And suddenly there was a change of scenery. All of a sudden, I was 2 meters up and saw myself lying there, myself with tubes leading to my head. And it was incredibly exciting, because at that moment I didn't realize what was going on.
What do you mean by seeing yourself? Was it different from looking at yourself in the mirror, for example?
Yes, there is a difference, because when I look in the mirror, I see myself as I'm now, right? But I was 2 meters up, which is not quite normal for a 6-year-old girl, because I was about 1.20 meters tall then, or even shorter. And suddenly I was really high up and saw myself lying there on this bed. That's strange, isn't it? I was standing there and looking at myself lying there. I wouldn't say it was like a reflection in a mirror. And yet, I was lying there with tubes going to my head and some medical devices were beeping. Then doctors came in as well. At first, I didn't realize what was going on. You think, okay, And then you see yourself lying there and you think, okay, And you start thinking, if I'm standing here now at a height of about 2 meters and see myself lying there at the same time, something can't be right. So after a while you start to realize that can't be right. And then I'm dead. It wasn't really bad when I realized that I was dead. But it was simply overwhelming to have this experience. Just to observe, I'm lying and I'm standing here at the same time. Something can't really fit together. I just observed myself for a moment and felt incredibly light. It was a lightness humans can't feel because we're stuck in our own bodies.
Weil wir einfach in den Körper drinstecken. Und da ist man fühlt sich wie eine Feder.
I felt like a feather. Also, I was much higher, about 2 meters up. I consciously tried to look down and wanted to see what I looked like. I looked down and wanted to look at my feet, but didn't see any feet. Because as a soul, I had no feet, more or less. And then I tried to look at my hands and didn't see any hands either. And that's what's exciting. You experience something like being in a body, but you don't see it. It was just a really great experience. The most impressive part was the unbelievable silence. A silence that I don't think we can experience at all in this world. It was like saying off, pause button, no background noise. You just see everything in slow motion. That's how I perceived it. It's a silence we cannot experience on Earth in such a way.
And what happened next?
Dann ging es so weiter, dass ich dann so links, also ich habe gerade auf meinen liegenden Körper halt geschaut.
I was looking at my lying body, and then I moved to the left towards the door. There was a door. Well, actually, it wasn't a door. It was a door frame, and this door frame was filled with light, completely filled with light. I must say that this light had a different frequency than on this earth. It is not comparable to sunlight. It was also quite dark in this intensive care room because I think it was night. That's how I perceived it. So it was quite dark in this room, and I moved towards this door frame, which was completely filled with light.
Und dieses Licht hatte, wie gesagt, eine andere Frequenz. Und ich hatte das Gefühl,
this light had a different frequency. I had the feeling that it was a slightly bluish tint, a mix of white and blue light. I was drawn to it. It was something I'd never seen in my whole life on Earth. Then I slowly moved towards this light, very slowly at walking pace. And then I heard a voice that asked me, "Girl, do you want to go?" I was asked this question, but I didn't see anybody or anything. Just a voice that asked me, "Do you want to go?" That really was the exciting thing. I was standing in this dark room in front of the door frame, filled with white light and this blue color, this unique light frequency. Then I slowly moved towards this light, and I was asked this question, "Girl, would you like to go?"
Und in dem Moment,
at that moment, I reflected on the whole situation, if you can put it that way. I reflected on this and had only one thought. My parents.
Danke waren meine Eltern. Mir sind sofort meine Eltern.
I immediately thought of my parents, Mom, Dad. And as I was having this thought, Mom and Dad, it pulled me back like a force. It pulled me backwards into my body at an incredible speed. That was the kind of near-death experience I had.
Was this light in which you describe a purely visual experience, or were there also feelings connected with it? Love, a sense of having arrived, of security even?
The feeling I associated with it, it was a feeling of being in good hands, absolutely. I also didn't feel that someone wanted to push me into doing something. I mean, if you did take the voice's offer, you'd do it because of your own accord. There was absolutely nobody there who said, "Come on, you're leaving now," or anything like that. I was free to do what I wanted to do. It was my own choice. And I also had the feeling I couldn't answer properly, because in the spiritual world, there are no languages as such. In the spiritual world, you purely communicate with your thoughts. You just think about what you want to say. And since I thought of my parents, as it was in my case, it was not a clear yes. Then I didn't clearly indicate that I wanted to go over the threshold now, because there was obviously something regarding my parents that I had to accomplish with them on this earth, or something I had to learn or realize, whichever way you want to put it. And that was basically the answer for me, why I did not cross the threshold.
Did this experience have a strong influence on you?
Ja, also in der Anfang.
Well, after staying in intensive care for 2 weeks, I woke up and stayed in the normal ward for another 2 weeks. There, the experience was still very fresh. But as a child, I had the impression that it would be better if I didn't tell my parents about it yet, because they themselves were very shocked by the whole thing. Basically, I could have died because of the brain hemorrhage, seen purely from a physical point of view. I had the feeling that it was better to keep it to myself for now, because I realized that my parents weren't in the emotional state to process something like that. About 2 years later, I started talking to my mom about it. And to be honest, I needed that time to process it myself. It was important for me, for sure.
And how did your mother react?
My mum's reaction was quite open-minded because she had also thought about such things before. Yes, it was just nice talking to her about it so openly, definitely.
Yeah.
So you never had the problem that you were burdened by such an experience in the sense that you just didn't know what was going on with you? Was it never a burden in that sense?
No, I mean, I know I experienced it. For me, it was quite clear, but I can totally accept if somebody might think that I'm crazy because of that. I can accept that because that person hasn't had the same experience. He cannot understand it, nor can he accept it, because it is beyond our human understanding.
Are you still afraid of death?
Me? No. Well, my personal view is this. I don't believe at all that we're humans are really afraid of death. I believe, in truth, we're only afraid of our true greatness and of our immortality. And we confuse that with the fear of death. That is my opinion.
Why are we afraid of immortality?
That's a good question. Simply, I think it's about greatness. That we're such great souls, great beings, and that there is never an ending. For me, it is a bit scary when I think about it, that there is never an ending. It frightens me in a way.
How was your conception of man developed through this experience? What is your view of the meaning of life?
That's the exciting thing, because this experience happened to me as a child, so I started very, very early to think about such things. Actually, when I was 7, 8, 9, I went to seminars with my mom. I was always the only child there. If you have experienced it yourself, the question does not arise whether existence goes on. I'm very interested in spiritual topics and what happens after life, why we're here in the world. I really enjoy occupying myself with this topic.
Have you found a preliminary answer to the question of the big why?
That can differ from person to person. But I believe that each soul wants to experience what the term I am everything means. That a soul is simply everything and wants to experience I am everything during her whole life. She wants to have played each role once, simply to feel or experience what that means. For example, if I imagine it this way, I'm a little soul in heaven, and I know I'm nothing but love. I am everything. I am love. But now it is difficult to say I am love when I've never experienced what it is, or when I say I am forgiveness. Then I believe that you come to earth to experience what it means to be forgiveness. And so, for example, some people in life treat you horribly, so that you can make the experience, I forgive this person. That's how it is. That's what it feels like to be forgiveness and to forgive. So I think it's like a game to make the experience of I am everything.
Within the biographies of people who can look back on near-death experiences, it often shows that after these experiences, they had a refined perception and increased sensitivity. Is this also something that you believe characterizes your life?
Absolutely. I have also noticed in the course of my life, especially from the age of 14, that a lot has changed in me, purely on the energetic level. I'm much more sensitive. When I meet certain people, I immediately feel if there is resonance or something else. For example, I can't go to mass gatherings at all, because it's too much for me. A far too big confusion of energies. I can rarely tolerate that. I then always have to put on some protective spray so I can cope with it. I feel like I'm full of holes. I no longer have proper protection because I can still sense certain feelings of others, and I know how they feel. When someone stands in front of me and tries to pretend something he's not, I see right through him. Yes, okay, I accept that he wants to come across like that, but in truth, that's not him. Well, I notice very quickly when a person shows me a facade of himself and wants to pretend something he's not.
Will your spiritual orientation also play a role in your professional direction?
Absolutely, definitely. I just don't know exactly how to integrate all of it, but I trust that the right thing will happen. It's gonna be alright. For now, I have started training as a kinesiologist, where you also work with energies. I honestly have a lot of joy doing this, but for me, it lacks spirituality. So I say, hey, I take this and that, and I will combine everything I like, and the right thing will happen.
Then I wish you all the best, and thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much.